Welcome to this live stream from Schupak Sports. I'm Marty Schupak. And if you're listening to this on different venues for podcast, I urge you just go to the Schupak Sports website. The visual, you'll get a lot more out of it. This is a T-ball clinic for coaches and parents and league presidents or anyone who wants to become a better coach in anything. And I want to welcome you. And the format is basically I will hold up a drill and I'm going to describe it, why I do a certain drill, why I recommend it. And throughout the clinic, I'm going to be giving different coaching tips. I urge all of you, if you're involved in T-ball or you get involved in youth sports, we have one goal and one goal only. We want to teach kids the right way. We want them to develop a passion, so they have a lifetime passion for baseball and softball. We want them to come back the next year to play with a lot of enthusiasm. Kids will not be enthusiastic unless you, the coach, are enthusiastic, and that will translate to the enthusiasm with the kids. But let's get started. And again, if you can, please, I'm going to mention this at the end, subscribe to Schupak Sports. If you could give me a thumbs up on this, if you like it, I appreciate it. And if you could give me a comment, that I even like a lot better. Okay, so we're going to go a few drills. I'm going to go through one advanced drill. And stick around because if you're going to be a coach for a long time, I'm going to give you a hint that's going to make you a better coach, highly more competitive than other coaches, and putting you in a position actually to win more games as a coach. Okay, this is a very simple drill. I just call it touch 'em all. We'll go through a few base running drills, and all we're doing is we're having the player hit the ball off the tee, and they're going to be running to first, second, and third base. Now, if you look here, and I've said this before, if you've watched me, you'll see two bases that are different color. What I do is I like to put a throwdown base, a red base at first, blue base at third. Some kids will recognize this red, white, and blue as the color of the flags. We want to teach them the direction to run in. And as you'll see, sometimes base running a T-ball is an adventure. It's a fun adventure too. And we don't want to reprimand the kids if they end up running to third base first, or I've seen kids run to second base first before they go to first base. We want to teach the kids. Okay, so all we're doing is, oh, and one thing I didn't mention, this is showing them hit the ball off the tee. What I actually like doing is I like not having a ball and having them take like a ghost swing the bat, drop it, and then run to the bases. Now, here's a hint. When they drop the bat and in T-ball, a lot of times kids will throw the bat, not just T-ball, at a young age. I like to put a cone down here. And the reason being is I tell the players, when you run to first base, though, drop the bat right around where the cone is, okay? It's a good habit to get these kids into. All right, easy, touch them all. And I would do that almost every practice. Okay, now this drill is run through the base. All I'm doing is I'm putting a cone beyond the base, and I'm telling the players, when they start at home, they're going to run to touch first base and go past it to the cone. All right. We're teaching players not to stop. Some players, you'll see, they'll run to first base. It'll seem like there's a wall here. They'll just stop there like that. Okay. We want to teach them to keep going and run past, and we put the cone out there. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting a cone at first base during a game. I mean, some leagues might frown upon it, but we're here to teach kids the right way to play baseball and softball. So if we want to teach them to run through the base, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting a small cone beyond first base. And what I like doing too And you might disagree with me. After they run to first base, I like having them turn to foul territory. Okay. There's a little bit of a controversy on this, and what it is in real baseball, you're allowed to turn to fair territory. And unless you have an intent to go to second, the fielding team, they if you have an intent to go to second, they'll tag you and you could be called out. But if you don't have an intent to go, you could turn towards fair territory. Why I teach my players when they run through the base, turn to foul territory. A lot of leagues, this happened with us. They use young kids as base umpires. And I've seen it done twice where an opposing coach will yell out, tag him, he turned to fair territory. And the fielding team will tag the base runner and they'll call him out, which is the wrong call, and it's not overturned. He didn't make an intent to go to second. He just ran past it, and turned to fair territory. I don't like putting anything in the hands of the umpire, so I teach my team fundamentally, run through the base and turn to foul territory. Okay? All right. And this is kind of a piggyback on base running. And we all know the game running bases. And I urge you to try it with the kids, but you make sure they spread out. Some of them won't get the concept, but you want to do it loosely. When I mean loosely, even if you could tag the runners, don't tag them every time you think you could tag them out. Let them play. Let them get used to seeing you throw, then running, or seeing you fake, then run, okay? And the other thing is, I've mentioned this before, as T-ball coaches, you want to incorporate different games and things and put a baseball theme in them. And by this, and I've said this a lot of times, you could have a game of red light, green light, but put a baseball theme and have the players have a baseball glove and hold the ball in it. You could do that same thing with a relay race. So this is running bases. A lot of fun. I also want to mention, you're just getting started with T-ball. And if you intend to coach for a long time, whether it's your own kids, you getting to coach it, and you might coach beyond that. I know I did. Okay, I urge you to develop your own coaching philosophy. And what I mean is, I don't want you to take Marty Schupak's philosophy, and that's yours. I don't want you to take your high school baseball coach's philosophy, or your high school softball coach's philosophy, or your football coach's philosophy, and that's your philosophy. Take bits and pieces from other coaches and develop your own philosophy. Okay? You'll become a much better coach if you do that. Keep in mind also a couple of things. You parents that are watching this, at the T-ball age, like 4, 5, 6, in some cases 7, all things being equal, the smaller kids tend to be a little bit better athletically. So if you have a large kid, and I know I was a large kid, don't get discouraged if they're not competing with a lot of the other kids. Remember, kids progress at different levels, different stages. I've seen kids never pick up a basketball or a baseball bat, and at 13 or 14, they pick it up and they become pretty good players. So don't get discouraged. All right. This drill, you might have seen it, and I put it in here. It's called the lead drill, where we're lining kids up in a straight line, and the coach is throwing the ball, and the kids have to, what I tell the kids to do in T-ball, very rarely can they catch the ball. I just want them to touch the ball with their glove. When you're doing this drill, too, you don't want to have a large space where you're throwing the ball, because these are T-ball age kids. And remember, if the sun is out, you want to have the kids run into the sun, because they're going to turn around and look away from the sun. When you're first doing it, you might want to have the players just walk throw them the ball, try to lead them, just tell them just to touch it with their glove. All right. And the benefits really is we're getting the players their first real experience of running to field a fly ball. And also, we always want players to get used to moving their feet. Too many times I've seen older kids, especially kids that have a very expensive glove, they tend to think that if their parents bought them a $300, $400 glove, if they reach out with it, the ball's automatically going to go into the glove. It doesn't work like that. All right. You could give someone on the street the best surgical scalpels and things. That doesn't make him a great surgeon. So I maintain we have to keep kids getting used to moving their feet. And while we're on that subject, I want to mention, I mentioned before, try not to use running as a punishment. That's not what we want to do. I prefer if you could use running as a reward. So if they do something good, you could say to the team, let's take a victory lap and run around the infield with them. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. And the next drill is it's called the turn drill. And what we're doing is we're testing a young player's reaction time. And the beauty of this drill is we could adjust it to the parameters of the player's skill, his skill level. The back, as you see, is to the coach here. So he'll have his back to the coach. He'll throw a ball. For T-ball, I want you to throw ground balls. And you'll yell turn, and they'll turn around, and they have to try to, and I'll say this, they have to try to stop it. They don't have to necessarily catch it. We want to teach them the concept of keeping the ball in front of them. Okay? And the beauty of this drill, depending upon the level of the player, even at 4, 5, 6, and 7, some players will be better than others, especially players that are returning for another year of T-ball or players that have an older brother or sister that's athletic. You could adjust when you yell turn, okay? Some players, you might just yell turn as soon as you let go of the ball. The better athletes, you might have the ball bounce 1 or twice and then yell turn. All right. I actually like to do this barehanded at first. So that's the turn drill. When the kids get older, if you remember this drill, you could do it with like a tennis ball on the fly. It's a heck of a good drill. It's a lot of fun. You could divide the team up. I like to have 2 players, 1, 2 at each station with a coach or an assistant coach. Okay. And again, I like the coach when they're doing a drill to have a bucket of balls. I say this all the time. First of all, don't spend money you don't have. But if you have any excess money you want to put into your team, buy baseballs. T-ball, you buy the soft covered T-ball baseballs. If you're coaching a higher level, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, spend it on regular balls. That's where you want to put your money. This is something I put in, okay? It's called run at the lead base runner. And you have to understand that with young kids, you could say run at the lead base runner. They have no idea what the lead base runner is, and you have to show them. All right. And what I do with this drill is I have the fielder, his back is turned, but I'll have a coach or an assistant coach instruct 2 players where to stand. Sometimes I'll have them both on second base. Sometimes I have them over here. And the coach will instruct them. When I yell go, they'll either run in the same direction, they'll both run in the opposite direction. The player turns around on the go command. He has to recognize the lead base runner, okay? And he's got to run after that lead base runner. That's what we want to do. Sometimes I'll have one base runner in this way, one base runner one this way. I had an experience one time with this drill where I had a player, he turned around, he just started crying. It's going to happen, you know, you just got to remember the level that we're coaching at. Again, this is called it's run at the lead base run or recognize the lead base runner, player with his back turn, and these two guys will break. Sometimes I have them start out standing together at second base. And I want the fielder to run to them, but I want him to tag the lead base runner. The concept we're teaching is, what is the lead base runner? Okay, I want to also mention that, you know, when you start coaching older kids and you start getting involved with hitting and fielding and pitching, I like to tell coaches, and I've done clinics around the country. I used to do a lot more. It's much better to underteach kids than to overcoach. And I say that because I've coached kids over a period of years, and I've noticed if a player is doing a few things wrong, let's say hitting, but you correct one of those things, a lot of times it'll auto-correct some of the other things that he's doing wrong. I had an assistant coach one time who was a brilliant hitting coach. I mean, even today, he's actually coaching majors, but the problem was he had a hard time relating to the younger kids, and he was telling them at a team the different things they should do. I had to pull him aside and say, look, just tell them the three most important things. All we're doing is confusing them. All right. Okay, we're going to get to an advanced tip now. And if you get a chance while I have you there, we have a few more minutes to go. If you can, just give me a thumbs up right on there. It helps me out. I want to keep this concept going. So please give me that thumbs up. And if you want to make a comment, please do. If you want me to cover other stuff, please ask me in the comment. If you want to contact me personally, my email is greenrewind@gmail.com. I'll repeat that, the color green, rewind@gmail.com. If you're going to coach in the higher levels of baseball and softball, and you want to have a leg up on your fellow coaches, what I recommend you to do, and what I did years ago, about halfway through my 30-year coaching career, I start focusing on base running. And I promise you, if you do that, you'll have the best team in the league that does really good base running. And most of the other coaches, they're not going to practice base running. And what I mean by practicing base running, not just running the bases, but strategic base running, having strategies, knowing how to follow a ball that's pitched in the dirt. Now, again, this is at a higher level. You're involved in T-ball. But I'm just telling you, get involved in base running. And the reason I did this, I'll tell you, I'm a huge NFL fan. I remember listening to one coach. I was at a clinic and he said, look, one year I knew I didn't have as much talent as the other teams. What we did is we changed our practice, where instead of just devoting 10% to special teams, we devoted 40% of our practice to special teams. And this team finished like above 500, and they were supposedly going to have a losing record. And I just took that and I put it to baseball with base running, and I did that, and it definitely works. One of my best years, I went through my scorebook and I found that my team was thrown out at home 21 times. We ended up winning the championship, but we were aggressive base runners. And when you're aggressive base running, okay, the other team will know it, the other coach will know it, and they'll slip up on a lot of easy plays. The other thing on base running I want to mention, then I'll show you the advanced drill. You'll find that your fastest players are not necessarily your best base runners. I've had players with average or just a little above average speed that were instinctive, and they were tremendous base runners. And the other thing I just want to mention too, wherever you live, I urge you all to try to take your kids and go to either a minor league game or a college, excuse me, Division II or Division III game, but investigate the coach and see what he's good at, and try to get a coach that's good in base running. I used to do that. I live about 27 miles north of New York City. I used to go to a college in Jersey. I think it was Patterson College, observe the coach. And it's very important if you take your kids because they can see the whole field. And then I used to go up to West Point and observe a couple of their practices years ago. All right, this is an advanced drill. I call it the bounce and run drill. And what I do is I line players up at second base. I have two fielding players, a shortstop, third base. Sometimes I have a coach at first base. I'm here. I'll throw a ground ball either to third or to short. The player at second has to bounce off the base, okay? And he can't leave until the fielder throws the ball to first base, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm teaching players to develop a feel or an instinct to get as big as a lead as they could and then to release and go to the next base. And what I do as coach, I'll have a signal where I'll have a player fake a throw, and a lot of times he'll catch the player running and he tags him out. And it's good that it happens in practice. Okay, so it's the bounce and run drill. They're gonna, on a ground ball, they're gonna bounce. If it's a ground ball's to short, he can't bounce off as much as if it's a ground ball to third. When the player gets to third and the next player in line goes, they do the same thing. The player bounces off third and he goes home on the release of the ball. In a game, I like to coach my players, unless it's a home run, whenever you go home, you have to slide. Okay, no ifs, ands, and buts, you must slide. I don't care how much ahead of the play you are, but you must slide. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to show you a couple of products. I want to mention too, and a couple of things. First of all, as a coach, you want to try to use as many resources as you could and try to think outside the box, especially after you leave T-ball 5 years from now, and you're going to have a lot of competition. Give you an example. I thought one of the best strategies is to have a player bunt with 2 strikes, and I've always used it. And why I use it is because a lot of time with 2 strikes, the opposing coach will say to the third baseman, okay, move back, he's not going to bunt. I'll have a player bunt. Now, of course, it depends upon what type of personnel you have, who's up there, what type of bunter it is. I've been burnt sometimes, and I hear from the parents behind me who are all general managers. But the point is, try to think outside the box. And sometimes your best coaching book is your gut. And the last thing I want to mention too, we live in such divisive times. I've never seen anything like this. Everything ends up coming down to politics. Try to keep politics outside of youth sports. T-ball is one of the best times you're ever going to have. All right. Keep it non-competitive, because I promise you, in 5, 6, or 7 years, you're going to say to yourself one day, boy, I remember what that guy said, but having fun, keeping it non-competitive. You're going to have some competitive things. You're not going to believe what you're going to see. So try to keep T-ball non-competitive. Let me just go around back here. Here's something I recommend. T-ball drills. A lot of the drills you just saw came from there. It's available on Amazon, but don't buy it if you don't have the money. I always urge people, go to your library, your reference desk, tell them you want them to get the book. They're going to hedge at first because I self-publish all my books, and they're going to say we don't buy self-publishing books, but insist and they'll do it. And, another book. Yeah, here's one. 44 baseball mistakes and corrections. I saw the same baseball mistakes coming up over and over again with my teams for years, and it just drove me crazy. So I started writing them down, and I picked the ones that come up the most, and I put them in a book, and I have pictures. I put in the mistakes they make and how to correct them. I'll just read a couple here. Not practicing interference, not practicing obstruction. I teach my teams what the difference is. Here's one: outfielders holding the ball too long, outfielders not charging the ball, backing up the wrong way. I go over all these, so if you're gonna stay in baseball or softball, I highly recommend it. Again, if you could subscribe to Schupak Sports, give me a thumbs up. I very much appreciate it, and we're gonna end up. And until next time, I'll meet you at third base.